Hello and welcome to the Gooner Tour, back again with you guys for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series. Join you on Friday, a couple of days before, of course, Arsenal's game against West Ham this weekend. I'm very happy to welcome Deluded Gooner to the channel. DG, how you doing, mate? You good, you well?
You're far too kind, Tom, man. Appreciative for having me, man. You know, it's been a while, man. Happy to be back here. Happy to chop it up with you speaking Arsenal. Appreciate you for the invite, bro.
Absolutely. Arguably the hardest working man in the Arsenal YouTube
Nah, you're too
sphere.
kind. That's you, man. I can't claim that. That's
Produces
you, man.
more shows than Odegaard does assists during a season. It is quite special. I mean, I have to ask you, where does the motivation come from to produce this many shows, mate?
Man, you know, you're just too legit to quit, I guess, man. It's like you just got to keep going, man, like Mikel Arteta, I guess, man. You know it yourself, you know, you just got to keep going, bro. I wish there was some mad reason, but that's all I got for you, broski.
No, lovely stuff, mate. Keep at it. It's always good, and I'm always
that.
enjoy jumping on with you as well, mate. And if you're not already subscribed, people, make sure you are. You can find DG's channel in today's title header. Let's talk about titles, mate, because that's what Arsenal are aiming for this season. 8 games to go now. On a scale of 1 to I'm bricking it, where are you kind of at right now?
Bricking it and more, some man. Like it's 8 games, like you said, broski. It's eight games. It's all come down to this point. We put ourselves in a fantastic position. We don't know what the league's going to be saying next year. We have the chance to win our first Premier League title during the Emirates era, and for some of these players, so we just got to show up and fight, really, and run it to the end. It could be down to fine margins, but this is what we wanted, bro. This is what we wanted.
It is. We have been calling for this for a long time. I've been saying to people that are getting too nervous, you know, a little bit too angsty about it. I was like, you got to enjoy it. Like, I know it's horrible and the nerves are overwhelming, but you got to enjoy it, haven't you?
You're right, man. You've got to enjoy it. Definitely the last couple of seasons we've had, and we didn't expect to be here in August. It would be gutting not to win it, but like you said, we've got to enjoy it. We've got to relish it. Even it's funny you say that because Mikel Arteta said the same thing. It's like we've just got to take every game as it comes, and hopefully we can react against West Ham, get 3 points, and you know it remains 7 games until we win it by God's grace.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the next one because it is West Ham United away from home on Sunday. William Saliba's not going to be fit. Is that a worry for you?
Naturally, anytime Saliba's not been here, it's gonna be a worry, man. He's part of our first choice centre backs. To be fair, Rob Holding has stepped in. He done well in the last couple of games he played. I think one positive of sorts against Liverpool. He probably had his best game against Liverpool in a long time. So yeah, we're just gonna have to get on with it. We've shown we can cope with injuries. You know, Jesus has been injured at a point, Partey, Zini, couple of players. So obviously you want to see Saliba back. Definitely you want to see him back for City. Forgive me if I'm wrong. We've got West Ham and Southampton. So yeah, hopefully he's back, but injuries happen in the season. We're just gonna have to get on with it, bro. Have to.
No, we do. I mean, is there an element of restriction when it comes to Rob Holding coming in for Saliba? I mean, what changes in the defence for you when Holding's there instead of the Frenchman?
Obviously, like Rob Holding is not probably as dynamic going backwards defensively in our high line, so that probably robs a bit of probably Partey, Benjamin White,
Unintended
and so on.
On Rob there. Robs
exactly.
us.
Exactly. Yeah. I didn't even realize. Yeah, he kind of robs us in that regards. And you've played Sunday League football. Naturally, if you know your teammate isn't as mobile, you're always going to think like that. And obviously, Benjamin White, for example,
that was me. I was the immobile one. Just heads up. Yeah.
This guy. But yeah, man, obviously if you to go back to Sunday League, you know, if your teammate's not a bit immobile, you have to kind of help him. And I think Benjamin White's got to hold himself accountable for the Liverpool game because he's been good this season. He had a bad game, but is it really a coincidence that, you know, the most even game we've played since Saliba's been injured, Benjamin White and that right-hand side, it hasn't been quite dynamic. So naturally, there's going to be a knock-on effect. It's just like if Tomiyasu comes in at right back or left back, with the greatest of respect, we know we lose something in an attacking sense. But yeah, man, of course it's a worry, man, to answer your question, of course. But Rob Holding's done well, and isolated with that, I don't think Rob Holding is the reason we didn't take 3 points against Liverpool. In fact, he's probably one of our better players, if I'm honest.
Yeah, no, I agree. So was it 9 clearances, I think, in the game? He did really, really well defending the box. I mean, that is, yeah, it's what he does. You know, when he's outside and inside the box, is heading the ball away. Well, I don't know if you disagree. I expect it to be the same team come on Sunday. And obviously West Ham have played a game in between. They've had their European game against Ghent. Do you feel as though that might have any kind of bearing on this?
I hope so. Like, I know they played midweek. I don't know if they rotated their lineup and things like that. And I know Liverpool did, but Liverpool had 2 games in a week. Didn't really look like that in the second half on Sunday. So yeah, man, we know West Ham are fighting for their lives. You know, it's almost a luxury that we're talking about the Premier League title. They're fighting for survival. So again, as Arteta said, if it could be decided on fine margins, it could be, and these sort of things could give us a somewhat lift. I look back to the game last year, and that was a very emotional game. I want it to be boring, Arsenal, really. Just turn up, get the 3 points, and keep it moving. We should be fresher.
Indeed. Obviously, there's kind of a narrative in the game around Declan Rice as well. Arsenal playing him for the second time this season. Is he a player you want to see rock up at the Emirates next year?
I mean, we've spoken about it a lot of times, bro. 100%. If the rumors are true and there's any inkling that we could get Declan Rice, why wouldn't you? Premier League proven, English, you know, what you're seeing with Granit Xhaka and just players all over the field. Arteta is getting somewhat several new notes out of players that you didn't think had many gears. So I can't be a bigger fan of trying to get Declan Rice or any of these guys signed up, because I think we need to make a couple of midfield additions. You know, going back to the Liverpool game, I might be wrong. I don't know where you feel, but second half, it looked like maybe if we had an 8 to replace Xhaka, or if we had another number 6, which Rice can do both roles, we might have been a bit more dynamic in the middle of the park, man. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Declan Rice. He needs to sign for us, really, if rumors are true. 100%.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we talk about having the extra need for maybe having a couple more midfielders. Georgina was on the bench on Sunday. I felt as though maybe that was a player we could have brought on when we brought Ødegaard off, was add an extra midfielder to kind of combat that advantage that we'd arguably been given when they brought off Fabinho in the second half. Do you feel it was maybe a little bit off of Arteta with the subs he made on Sunday?
I mean, it takes me back to the game at Old Trafford, really. I think there's been a lot of times where, you know, as Arsenal fans, I think one criticism we probably have of Mikel Arteta is his reluctance to make subs. To be fair, there's been times he's not made subs or made subs at certain points. And as you see, because you follow Arsenal, they've impacted the game. I do think that's a learning curve for Arteta in those sort of moments. As much as our backs were against the wall, I do think there's, you know, some logic with the changes he made. I know Jesus is coming back from injury, but I felt there's a coincidence that he's come off. Trossard can play as a false 9, but he's not a real physical threat for Van Dijk. And we just had no outball. We just couldn't hold up proceedings. In relation to Ødegaard, I also, watching the game again, believe that as well. So he could have drawn for Jorginho, to be very honest with you. But I think one issue, or maybe a reluctance of Arteta, is one criticism of Jorginho. He's not really good on the transitions. Last time he came on in the Emirates recently, that was shown. So maybe that was in the back of Arteta's mind. But to be fair, if they're on the bench, if you've signed them, they've got to be ready for any sort of eventuality, really. So I'm not sure, man. I personally didn't want to see Jorginho, if I'm honest, but you've got a midfielder, and the way you've put it, yeah, you could have drew for him, bro. Could have really taken him off the bench, and maybe we'd have had a different outcome.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is probably the area of Arteta's game that is probably the biggest area of development, is probably the most polite way to put it. Still a young manager, of course, and you're always going to have areas to improve. 100%. And when it comes to the weekend's game, again, going back to West Ham, I think we agreed that we'll probably see the same team, but there are players on that bench that are going to be looking to try and get minutes, and if the game state suits it, I think one of those is probably Emil Smith-Rowe. Are you a little bit concerned about Smith-Rowe's situation right now and his future and how he gets back into the rhythm of playing regularly for us?
In relation to his future, no, because again, Arteta and Arsenal are very calculated, really and truly. So for me personally, you know, we knew what we was doing when we gave the man a new deal. So I'm not gonna, you know, you was flying high last year, you kind of poor this year. I'm not gonna turn my back on you. Now, obviously, with him, with Tomiyasu and Cole, probably gonna be a concern next season, but I'm keeping faith in Smith-Rowe. I mean, you've reached the pinnacle. You know, you're an academy lad. You was helping the team last year. You're getting the number 10, the videos with Omri and Bergkamp. This is the reality now. You're going to have these periods. So I'm not really concerned. You already know, bro, because we speak about, I'm very biased when it comes to Smith-Rowe. I'm probably the wrong person to ask. But nah, man, I'm all right, man. I'm all right, man.
Yeah, he's one of those now where I think maybe people are forgetting what happened with Martinelli after he had his knee surgery.
There you have it.
And I think when you consider we're still very fresh out of Smith-Rowe's surgery, and he's not had the game time to really react to that either.
And been injured since August, essentially, bro.
Exactly, yeah. And he's not had many minutes whatsoever. So I look at the summer, I look at preseason and think that's the time for Smith-Rowe to get back at it. Come back in next year. Yes, Martinelli's still going to be starting. We all know that. But I think, you know, as we move away from maybe Xhaka, do you see Smith-Rowe potentially coming in more central, or do you think he's locked into that wide playmaker role?
I don't think he's locked in at all. I think, you know, some players are locked in, but Arteta has shown, you know, he values players that can play a couple of roles, whether they're like Zinchenko, where you're a left back, but in reality, you're central midfield. You know, you look at Smith Rowe, I'm sure you'd agree when we look at him, you're probably an 8 in the future where you played against Brighton last year. You're at home as a 10. You made your position on the left-hand side. Arteta himself keeps talking about him playing as a false 9. So I don't think he should necessarily be locked down. I look at someone like Jack Grealish. Evidently, he's probably at home off the left or as a 10, but he can play everywhere. So why not? And when, like what you said, you know, it's Martinelli's spot to lose after he's taking advantage. If you can't get in the team, you got to play wherever you can, really. And you made a great point with Granit Xhaka. That could be a role for you, really. I would say for me, if anyone was to take that Xhaka role right now, I'm probably going to say Odegaard, maybe Fabio Vieira, but Smith Rowe has the intelligence and the ability, broski. So I can't imagine why he couldn't. I'd love for him to do that. Really, would need one less midfielder.
Yeah, me too. Rohan on Twitter, Rohan Blogs, who does some fantastic tactical work on social media. I remember we had a back and forth about 6 or 7 months ago where he was saying to me, he was like, no, his future lies centrally. I mean, look at the spaces that he occupied when he was starting on the left, and then look at the spaces that Xhaka's occupying this season, and they are eerily similar. And so you can see that maybe that role would suit him, and that maybe we can add a little bit of extra vibe to our attack. And I think that could bring us something different. I think it was a really good point, well highlighted by Rohan. When I look at what comes after West Ham, and obviously there's the big juggernaut of the City game on the horizon, I look at kind of the juxtaposition of the last time we played City, which was a loss against Everton, a draw to Brentford, lose Partey, play City. This time we've got West Ham, Southampton, Partey fit, fingers crossed, and
fingers
then
crossed,
City.
bro.
How important is that momentum compared to last time? How much do you think that will play a part in the City game? Or do you think it's such a moment in the season, it's more standalone-ish, or do you think that the games leading up to it are really important to keep that momentum building?
I think the way you structured that question, I think it's a twofold. I think both are really right. I feel it is an isolated incident in the City game, you know, regardless of the fact that we're 2 weeks away. For the best part of the season, both teams have probably kept one eye on what's going on elsewhere. But I also feel, you know, the topic of momentum that you mentioned, you need that. You know, the big part as to why I believe our season has been great. You can't draw too much into pre